Hi friends, welcome to Rita's Paper Motif. Today I wanted to show you how we're going to create a card using the hand-penned stamp set and the die set. So stay tuned, I have some great ideas to share with you today. First, let's do some housekeeping items, and I wanted to introduce myself as well. So I am Rita with Rita's Paper Motif, coming to you from United States, actually Northern Nevada. And I would love to help you in any way I can. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! A demonstrator, so I'm putting that out there. Know that if you're interested in what we do today, that you can find the directions and even more tutorials by going to ritaspapermotif.com. And there on the home page, if you scroll down to the very bottom, you have the opportunity to subscribe to my newsletter, and in my newsletter that goes out on a weekly basis, you'll find tutorials that I don't share on any of these other platforms. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, or any specials that are going on, or any news that would be important to you, whether you're a hobby paper crafter or if you're looking to join my team, then you would find those items in the newsletter quite helpful. All right, so continuing on, the item that I wanted to share with you today is called the hand-penned. There's a stamp set and the die set, which is called a bundle. So if you buy the stamp set, it's one price, and then the dies are one. But you can also take advantage of a 10% savings if you purchase the bundle. And then we do have some sales that go on from time to time where they even get down to 20% off. So you want to check that out. You can do that by going to my online store, again, at ritaspapermotif.com. Just click that Shop Now tab at the top, and there you go. You'll be right there. All right, so let's quickly move on. So what I wanted to show you today was a card using the hand-penned stamp set. So we're going to use that. We're going to use the dies or the die set, and we're going to use specifically one of those, and that would be the die that goes along with this flower right here. So we're going to use the die. We're also going to use some, I'll just put this to the side. We're also going to use some of our handy dandy Stampin' Blends. We're going to be using both light and dark of the Highland Heather, light and dark. This is Granny Apple Green, but if you have Old Olive, that would work as well. And then if you have So Saffron or a Daffodil Delight, that would work as well. This is Daffodil Delight. So if you haven't taken the opportunity to explore, I'll just put this so that you can see that better. If you haven't taken the opportunity to explore using these Stampin' Blends, these are great. They're alcohol based, and you use the light for coloring in, and most of the time we use the dark either for accents or shading those dark lines, or just enhancing that color already. And they come in packs of 2 for about $9, and they're just great to have. They come in every color of our color family, so they go nicely with the designer series paper and the ink as well. So if you have these, and if you want to stamp along today, you're going to want to get that out. And then also we're going to be using my Memento Black ink. I love this ink pad. It's a bit well loved. So this is a must-have, I think, for any stamp room or stamp studio or craft room. You do want to use the Memento with the alcohol markers or the blending brushes, because blending markers, I'm sorry, because if you use a different, like a StazOn or another kind of ink, what will happen is you'll have some bleeding of the ink. So just whenever you're using the Stampin' Blends, be sure to use the Memento. All right, so we've covered the ink. Now let's just go ahead and get started here. So I'm going to remove this. I don't think we'll need it. We're going to start out with a piece of cardstock. This is the Gorgeous Grape, and I cut it. It was 8.5. Originally, it was an 8.5 by 11.5 piece of cardstock. I just put it in my trimmer and cut it in half, which would be at the 5.5 mark. And then I turned it so that the 8.5 side was facing upward, and I just scored that in half as well. And so that was the 4.25. And then I did cut off about an inch here. Let's see, I'm pretty sure it's an inch, yes. So cut off an inch off of this front panel, because that's going to help us decorate the inside. So let's go ahead and do the inside while we're doing this. And so I did cut the inside panel, and this measures 4 by 5. Actually, it's not 4. It's 3 by 5, and we don't want that white panel sticking out here, so that's why it's a little shorter or narrower than normal. So let's go ahead and stick that in the inside. Actually, we should stamp it before, and I wasn't going to stamp this because I'm not going to stamp this one. I usually do stamp a sentiment, but at this time I'm not going to stamp it. So, gosh, you think I could make up my mind, right? Okay. So this is basic white cardstock, and we're just going to go ahead and line it up inside. It's such a bright sunny morning here today. We've had nothing but cold and rain, so that's kind of nice. And since we have a lot of light that I'm having to get used to because it's been so dark and gloomy. All right, so we have that on the inside. If you wanted to put a sentiment, go ahead. And then we have a strip of this designer paper that comes in the suite when you buy the hand pen suite. You can also buy this separately. It's about $11.50 for the package. Now, it does come in a 12 by 12 sheet, but for my purposes, for my ways of stamping, I should say, it works for me best if I take, so usually the 12 by 12 packs come with 2 of each thematic print, and then on the back, of course, this design on the back can be used at any time of the year. But they come in 2 sheets of each print, and this happened to be 12 by 12. So I'll take one of those sheets and I cut it right in half, which gives me a 6 by 12, 2 6 by 12 pieces. I put that in my scrapbooking bin so that I can use that for scrapbooking. And then I take the other sheet and I cut it in 6 by 6 squares. And so that gives me 4 squares of each sheet. And then when I cut this down, I have less wastage for me. And if I want to do a one sheet wonder, I have ample paper to do that. And if I want to cut it in a different way, I also have that. So that's what works for me. But you would definitely need to find out what works best for you, because there are a lot of paper crafters that cut their paper in different ways. Now the idea, and I can tell you from experience, is the biggest thing is you want to use your paper. If you keep it around just to keep it because you don't want to cut it up and you're going to get to it later, I'm going to tell you from experience that that usually does not happen. All right. you end up someday with a lot of paper. And I'm just trying, so that I don't get my head in the camera, I'm trying to find the best way to line this up. So I just basically want it on the inside along the edge here, and then we're going to take our scissors and we're going to cut off the excess just by turning it around. You can use your edge of your card as your guide. Okay, and then you have decorated the inside of your card, and it looks quite nice, right? But now we need to do something with the outside. So let's go ahead and work on that. Now, I did cut from the opposite side, or this side of the paper. I did cut a piece that measures 3 by 5 1/4, and we're going to just glue it right on here. But before we adhere it right on here, I do want to put this piece of white card, basic white cardstock, that is 4 by 3, and I want to put this on the front, and we're going to do something just a little bit different on the front. Normally when you're layering, you try to get them in the middle, right, with a little bit of a margin on each side. But for this, we're going to not have a margin here. So let's see. I want this flush with one side and then a margin all around the other 3 sides. Trying to get that even. That's not quite even. Boy, this is really hard to do when you can't get your head right down on it to see. Okay, I'm happy with that. And then we're going to go ahead and adhere it right to the card. So let's do that. And I do want it on the edge here. Maybe with a tiny bit, very tiny margin, just to give it a kind of a layered look. All right, so we're going to put so this is what our card looks like now. We're going to put it to the side while we finish. Now, I did tell you that we are going to be doing some stamping using that stamp set, so let's go ahead and work on that. I'm using this stamp right here. It is the smaller of the 2 floral stamps, and so I'm going to go ahead and stamp it. Again, we're going to use our Memento Black. Love this color. And while I'm doing this, I did want to just invite you to subscribe to the channel, and if you'd like to know when I upload more videos, more content, then you'll need to hit that bell icon so that YouTube will notify you. And I always like to know where you're watching from. Obviously, it will be on the replay, so you could just say hello there from wherever you are, and that would just be fun. All right, so I am going to just go ahead and stamp it on a piece of white cardstock. I didn't measure this, but you want it big enough for your stamp. And it is a scrap, so it's always good to use up our scraps so we don't end up with more scraps than the regular paper that we want. Now I'm going to go ahead and lay it inside here. I'm kind of tentative because, again, I'm not right over the top of it, and I am going to just kind of rub on it. You don't really want to move your block though, because you don't want to get shadows and you don't want to get muddy lines. So I'm just trying to make sure that I get every line on here. And then when we pick up our stamp, we're going to go ahead and clean it. I like to clean my stamps right away because the problem is if you don't, you forget, and then when you go to use them again, that can compromise your new design. So we are going to go ahead, well, when we have the Memento ink out, no, we'll come back and do it. I was going to go ahead and stamp the other, but it's better for me not to get too mixed up here. So I wanted to show you a little bit about the coloring. So we would start with the Highland Heather, and there is a dark and a light, and I'm going to start with a light, and it has two tips. One is like a, it's this kind of tip. It's more like it's a flatter tip, and then it has like the brush tip. So we're going to use the brush tip, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to color in these right here that look like petals. Now I'm not going to ask you to watch me color the whole thing. That would get tiresome. So let me just quickly do this. And I'm not going to use any shadowing on these this purple part or this Highland Heather part. And then of course you're going to want to color it so that it's all in. The lines are not very well defined, but you can make them more defined. So you would do that with a Highland Heather. You won't need the dark, like I said. And I wanted to show you one other thing. This flower right here, we're going to use the daffodil, the light daffodil. We're going to use the brush edge, and we're just going to color all of the petals here. Now keep in mind when you're using these markers, these alcohol markers, that it does take a while for the alcohol in the marker to evaporate. So if you're going to be shadowing or defining your image, you want to just give that a minute for it to dry before you go in with a darker blend or something. And we will be coming back to that. Let's just go ahead and also do a leaf while we're here, and then that can dry, and I can show you how you definitely, with the leaf, it has marks, and you would want to use the darker marker to enhance or define the marks that the artist has already given you for shadowing. Okay, so now we're going to go back, because this is a sample and I don't want you to have to watch me. We're going to go to color it all. I've already colored one, so we'll get to that. So with this, this is the darker daffodil, and I'm just going to go back, and where there's little marks on my flower, I'm just going to accent them. So that kind of gives us a like a shadow. And then in the middle, I'm going to take care of that little inside part, the little middle of the flower. And then with the darker granny green, so light and dark, with the darker one, we're going to go in and we're going to define those lines that are in the leaves, and it just gives it the definition. And then if you felt like you wanted to do some more lines, you can definitely do that. So now we have used our alcohol blending markers, and now we're going to move on to, we would take when you're finished with all this coloring, you would take this die and go ahead and lay it on your image that you've just colored, and lay it so that it's correct. And then I use washi tape so that I tape it on here so it's secure, and you run it through your die machine, and then you would get something that looks like this. Okay, and so we're going to use this. We're going to use it on our sentiment circle. But before we do that, I wanted to take a piece of this designer series paper, which is on the opposite side, and we're going to adhere it to this white panel right here, because we really don't want white on white. We really want to bring out the designer paper. So let me just go ahead and put some Stampin' Seal on here. Stampin' Seal is my adhesive of preference, or preferred adhesive, I should say. And I also like to use the silicone mat because adhesive, whether it's glue, hot glue, or the Stampin' Seal, will not stick to this silicone mat, and it does keep your surface free of the stickiness, because there's nothing worse than fighting a sticky board that you're working on. And so I'm just going to barely give this a little white strip there on this side, and I'm going to just go ahead and adhere it to the card. So now we have a very layered card. I do like layered cards. And we also have this flower here that we've colored, we've stamped, we've colored, and we die cut out, and we're going to put it here. But before we do that, let's go ahead and stamp our sentiment. And I wanted to make this a thank you card, so we're going to do that as well. And let's go ahead and stamp that. I'm going to stamp that in Gorgeous Grape. And if you wanted to, on the inside, you could use a stamp that says thank you for all the things you do, or whatever stamp you might have that would correspond to the thank you. But I'm just going to put thank you because I'm not sure who I'm going to give this to, and then I would write a message, and I would want just to choose the inside sentiments at that time. So I'm going to go ahead and use my Gorgeous Grape, and I'm going to ink up the sentiment that says thank you, and that comes also in the hand-penned stamp set. So it's right there for you. Okay, and we're just going to go ahead, keeping in mind that we're going to be using this. That would be where I would position my, actually this says thanks. And we're going to go ahead and stamp it and clean off that stamp. And then I am going to, I want to put my circle that I've die cut from the largest layering circle. I want to put that right here, and then I want to put this here to kind of finish it off. So to do that, I want to use the dimensionals, but I also want to make sure that we don't have any adhesive of any kind right here, because we don't want to stick our card together. We just want it to be stuck to this side. So I do want to use some dimensionals. So what I would do is just turn it upside down, and I know that I can put the dimensionals right here. So let's go ahead and start with our dimensionals. Now the dimensionals are wonderful because they'll give your card some elevation, and you can find these dimensionals in my online store. The release paper that's on the back of the dimensionals does kind of get everywhere, but they're well worth it. And actually, you know, when I'm crafting, my craft room gets a little messy anyway, so I'm not sure that I would blame it only on the dimensionals. Okay, and I'm going to take my take and pick tool, because that is so great for taking off this these release paper shapes on the back of the dimensionals. And this also you can find at my store. Mine looks a little different because I have removed the putty tip, and I only did that because I lost the plastic cover. And I didn't want the putty tip, or the putty and the tip, to get dirty or to even be wasted. So now I think I got all those off. I did. So we're going to go ahead and put this on our card. And then we're going to make sure that you don't see any dimensionals, and we don't. And then we're going to go ahead and put our floral right here. Now I'm not gonna prop up or pop up the floral, because I'll tell you why. Postage, as you know, has gone up, and that's not a secret. So what I would like to do is to just go ahead and secure it with my Stampin' Seal, because the sentiment circle is already elevated. And this is a sign of good markers, because it does bleed through. So you always want to remember that when you're thinking about positioning things. So I want to just put this so that it's, there we go. Okay. You could also put this on with the glue dots if you wanted to. And it's okay if you get a little Stampin' Seal up here, as long as it's adhering to this and not to this. And I think that's a very pretty thank you card, right? But what could it use? It could use a little bling. So we're also going to use the Genial Gems, sorry. Had a little issue with my words there. And I know the sound of that wrapping paper can be annoying, and I'm sorry. All right, so we have a choice. These are kind of iridescent, and they have kind of a pale papaya or soft succulent hue to them. But because they're iridescent, they would really go with actually any color. So I am going to use the pale papaya one, and they are different sizes, so I did want to just get, I think I'll get a smaller one. And the other thing that these are not really wanting to come out here. The other thing to remember is that we do say that using these in increments of 3 is more appealing to the eye. So I'm just going to put them on here. Trying to, let's see here, that flipped over. Sometimes for me, I can just use my fingers. If you have fingernails, you'll need this tool, but all right, let's see, where do I want to put this last one? So I like to put them at different, maybe I would like that moved over a little. Okay, so I did go ahead and use some of the Genial Gems here, and those can also be found in the online store. And we have created a very nice card using our hand-penned stamp set and the dies that go along with it. So any of the products that we've used today, you will find again at my online store at ritaspapermotif.com. And so that concludes our little video today, our little session of sharing. And again, I just want to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button if you like it, and the bell if you want to be notified of more content. So I want to thank you today for sharing your time with me, and you have a great day. Bye now.